They can go, this one works, this one doesn't. Use parts of this one if you're in oil and gas, and use parts of this one if you're in chemical, and whatever. It enables the salesperson to do their job more effectively. Sales, social marketing automation. This is kind of some of what Buddy Media does, and kind of some of what some other companies like Hearsay Social do. So, can I figure out a way to manage all those social interactions on the Facebook page, on Twitter, on whatever, and automate that to some extent? Not that it takes people out of it, but it makes it leverageable. So you're not, 4 guys on Twitter trying to support all Comcast customers. You actually have a system behind that lets it scale. Enhanced response. This is taking that sense and respond model, taking the data, putting it in context, and then helping you make that decision by getting the right people. I sort of think of it as like the new swarm model. We want to get the right people around the problem, bring the right data together, content, and systems that help me then solve that. And it might be a day, it might be an hour, it might be 6 months, but it helps me put all those things together. And then socialytics, that's the social analytic systems that we start to see, and Radian 6 has some of that. There's some Buddy Media stuff that's there. There's a bunch of other tools out there that do different parts of it. It could be, there's this great company in the UK that builds predictive sales tools. They take social data, mash it up with enterprise data, and tell salespeople when they think the customer is getting hot to buy, or when they're cooling off, or when, or there's community management. Lithium has a great community management analytics platform that tells you when an influencer is getting angry with you, or tells you when a customer might be an influencer in the next 60 days, and so you can treat them differently. Loyalty management and information management, and then all these other back office systems that could impact your customer. I won't spend a lot of time talking about loyalty, but I just put this in here because I think loyalty actually, so I can tell this story really, but loyalty is an interesting one because not only does it help you build customer satisfaction, but loyalty can be used as a tool to impact revenue. So I'll give you this example because I think this is such an interesting one, and it ties in mobile and it ties in cloud. So Swedish Rail was going through a problem a few years ago where the Swedish government had decided to privatize and open up the transportation system so that other rail systems could come in and compete. And so they had a few years to prep. So they realized that they had to do something dramatic or they were going to be in trouble because, this competition, they'd never had to deal with a competitive environment before. And so they hired a chief customer analytics and loyalty officer person at the CIO level. So executive level person on all customer analytics and on the loyalty program. And they built this program so that they shifted their riders from a card to an iPhone app. They put handhelds on the trains with all the conductors, and they tied all that together with an analytics system on the back end. Okay, so that sounds just like, United or American or whatever. But here's what they did. They took that and they started to run real-time analytics and take real-time action. So in other words, I look at today and I go, trains, when's balance? The 5:50 is oversold. The 6 o'clock train is undersold. So what do? They push offers out to the phone of those customers that are on the 5:50 that are high-value loyalty customers. Get 20% off if you're willing to take the 6 o'clock train. Pretty smart. Because now they start to load balance their trains. And they push out to the conductors on the trains. The conductor is checking your tickets, and as he scans it, it pops up and it says, Ami is a platinum level customer, and you have one open first class seat. So you can go in front of everybody, sir, we really appreciate your business, and today we're going to move you up to first class. In front of everybody. And how powerful is that? Talk about influence. And this whole thing, it changed dramatically the way they balanced the road. And they could show, talk about ROI. If you could take, and it's just shifting people 10 minutes. The people didn't care. They actually got a discount. But they increased their revenue so much because they could balance across all those trains, and their customer satisfaction went through the roof. People were getting deals on their phone when they were walking up to the thing, they could check in, the conductor knew who they were. I mean, tremendous. Loyalty is a great tool in this. So, new marketing, megaphones, good and bad. Word of mouth, talk about that a lot, and influence. Customer experience, and this one, and I wrote about this some last year, I was thinking about this quite a lot because, maybe because I get to be a frustrated customer often because I know what the system should do and what they should be able to do and they don't do it and it makes me crazy. Or, I don't know, maybe I'm just hard to deal with, but I get frustrated by this a lot, and you think about this, the number one way to build customer experience is to build it through supporting your customers effectively. So doing whatever it takes to actually solve the customer's problem or answer their question in a way that they understand that you care about it and you're trying to solve their problem, even if you don't solve it. That's the new marketing, and I think more and more I see this when I look at, even when I look at the systems, I start to see that there's really, sales and sales intelligence, sales enablement, and there's support, which is marketing. And those are the two, those are the big, corporate marketing and support are really coming together. More and more I think that's going to happen. Yeah, well it is, you're right. I mean, and they're huge. Actually, one of my favorite enterprise social network examples is a networking equipment company that made most of their money off of repeat sales, and their sales started to tail off. And they tried to figure out what was wrong, and they realized that their sales guys would go into the account and immediately be blindsided by all these customer service issues because they had no way of knowing what was there. They tried to email and they couldn't find it. It didn't come when they needed it, whatever. So they implemented an enterprise social network so that they could just in real time ask the question and get from the customer service rep an answer that says, okay, they have 4 open issues. One of them is going to be resolved in the morning. Actually, you can push them this link, and this will resolve the second one, and the other 2, one will fix next week, and one's not going to be fixed because they give the reason. The sales guy walks in, and he, what about this issue? And he goes, well, you see, tomorrow morning you get this, and sales went up 20%. So don't say there's not any value in an enterprise social network, because I mean that's connectivity. So innovation. This is the other one that's a new area. This ties directly into customer experience. Connectivity. What if I could build a process that involves customers and partners in building your product or service? Not in the focus group way, but in the real-time crowdsourced way. So this is the other area that we see a big shift in a lot of companies. They're starting to look at this and they realize they can capture the information directly from the customers and from the partners, and they can involve them in their product design process. They can actually then connect those directly to their design organizations. This is probably the most siloed operation that you have today in a lot of companies, because they operate in a very closed group. And part of that is, there's a certain amount of intellectual property protection and those kinds of things that you still have to have. But part of it is their systems. Their systems are all not connected to where this stuff lies. So in other words, CRM is a part of your PLM system. That's how we have to start thinking about it, because you've got to get ideas and put them through a project to get to products that we then, it's a continuous feedback process. Process, stakeholders, and capturing those ideas. And the other part, we see this a lot too, and I've done a couple of case studies around this, where companies have increased innovation simply by deploying an enterprise social network that has all their employees actually able to contribute to building the products. Because a lot of those employees, they didn't know they could do this, or they had great ideas but didn't have anybody to tell. This gaming company, they deployed a social network, and they didn't even deploy it for this reason. They deployed it to get critical patches and information out to their developers who were scattered around the world. But what they found is they used to design their games in a room with a whiteboard with 3 people, and now they have 400 people designing their games. Because all the developers wanted to participate in that and give them ideas and work and figure out ways to do this stuff. And tremendous amount of innovation that came from people that were never connected before. And then, why is it hard? changing behavior, we're changing culture, threatens traditional models. A lot of companies have misaligned incentives, so you tell people you want them to work together, you pay them to compete against each other. Guess what they do? They compete against each other because that's how you pay them. And so you have to fix the organizational issues, priorities, initiatives, incentives. You can't just say we want us to collaborate. You have to actually do that. Inside the box, in the past, people have, this is your job, you're not allowed to do anything else, and that's not where we're going. The silos are the problem. And how can you expect to talk to your customer when you can't talk to each other? So crisis consulting on several large accounts because they love the idea of building this connectivity with the customer and having a conversation with their customer. So they opened up all these channels to the customer and they told the customer, 12 conflicting things. And the customers left because they didn't know what was going on. Because sales and marketing couldn't talk to each other. They had no connectivity. So you really have to think about it as a whole system, not just a single piece. Know your customers everywhere. That's the biggest technology barrier today. How do you know me on Twitter versus me in your store versus me shopping online versus me on Facebook versus me on LinkedIn? It's hard. And so it's really a master data management, customer information management kind of problem. That's the number one reason why tying this experience together is going to be really difficult. Integration, and we have to tie the systems together, the boundaries that prevent that, and the technology silos, because in the past, and I've worked for many vendors, we built the systems in silos because that's the way we thought about them. We thought of this, supply chain system, the warehouse system was separate from the, and now I'm saying that I need to know that something shipped on time in customer service and on the dock and maybe in sales, and maybe because all these things have to connect. So, business is definitely in the middle of a big transformation, I think, and I try to be careful. I get excited about this sometimes when I'm talking about it, and last week, like I said, I did this fireside chat with Adam from Yammer, and he's another one of these guys like me who gets really excited about what's happening in the future. Business is transforming. It is a revolution, but it's not a revolution that's happening in the next 5 minutes. It's a revolution that's going to happen over the next 100 years, 50 years, or something. But it is changing. By 2020, there won't be such a thing as a social app because all apps will be social. Why would you build anything that didn't connect people? So, and you start to see this more and more. More applications that come out have that capability to connect people. And it's a double-edged sword because we get all these interesting, nice new networks, but then we have all these orphan networks that don't connect to each other. So, still have silos. So we got to tie those together. We got to move to this idea of customer experience and change the way we think of customer facing. Because the problem is that everybody's customer facing, and we need to be able to deal with our customer that way. And the systems don't really do that today. So we're going to have to figure out how to move from one to the other. All right, so that's almost an hour. I was trying to give you a little more time for questions, but we do have time for questions. So
certainly,
I'm happy to answer. Maybe I stunned you all. I don't know. That happens sometimes, and I get no questions.
I'm a deer in the headlights. Yeah. Related to the notion that what we used to call the back office systems are actually truly unified or should be unified with the so-called customer-facing systems, I've been trying to make sense of this term called customer journey, which is, perhaps it's the, in the list of 2012 buzzwords.
Yeah, or customer life cycle, or I don't know. I kind of like to think of it in those terms, but then I'm not appeal anyway, so maybe I always think of life cycle. But yeah, same kind of thing.
So I was just trying to figure how that might fit into the model that you present there. The notion that the customer journey, in a sense, what you're saying is the customer journey is more than just through the blue circles from your diagram. They're actually throughout shipping and supply. And
I think that's the paradigm shift, is that it's not, the problem, because we still talk about it that way, and we still get the customer team together to implement the CRM system, and we don't talk to the guy on the loading dock who actually knows that there's no way he can ship them because it's broken. But yeah, and so systematically, I've talked to a lot of vendors. I'm starting to see more and more kind of pieces come together, but truly integration is the big issue because they don't operate off the same. Even if they're service oriented, they don't operate off the same service definition. So even defining a customer is not the same thing in your sales system as it is perhaps in your shipping system. So you've got some real fundamental data problems because of it. But yeah, that's exactly the place we need to go. I completely agree with that. It's the idea that it has to thread through the whole experience.
In that same vein, I'm going to have I call it a cultural question. I always found over the years that CRM type systems, CRM vendors, had a certain sphere of, excellent understanding, scope of process, right, which breaks down. There's a lot more details around the order process and shipment processes. It gets very gnarly, and a lot of them, historically, think about Siebel and its revolution time, right? They just never touched it, right? They didn't.
Or they built sales configurators.
These famous failures in a way. So obviously the ERP guys have the knowledge and the details of the process. Who's gonna? Because I think there's gonna be winners and losers. Because clearly Salesforce wants to be a platform. Clearly SAP and Oracle are platforms.
Yeah.
How do you see this evolving? Does Salesforce have to have an understanding of some of these process details to win that battle, or can they skim the surface?
So here's an answer that, and this is we're in evolution around what platform is.
Yeah.
Okay. So the simple solution is to say Oracle or SAP can sort out their own house and solve the problem. But the fact of the matter is that inside of SAP there are modules that don't integrate to each other.
Sure.
There's still issues, right? So nobody has an easy road. But here's what I started to see as I thought about some of the ways platforms could go. And more this seems a reasonable approach. The more you get services defined at the same level, the more that you can, as a customer, start to consume things in smaller and smaller pieces so that you can configure what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the new platform actually wasn't a platform, but it was a hub that connected services and allowed you to consume services in whatever configuration you needed? So in other words, the new platform might not be a platform at all. It might be that we move away from what we consider an application today, and we really move to something that's, and we're already starting to see it. Oracle talks about Fusion Applications has over 100 applications, and then they say 100 modules. It's really over 100 major services, because some of the things they defined wouldn't be called an application in the past, but it is today. So I think if this happens more and more granular, then it gives you the capability with this hub orchestration to connect. That's kind of what Salesforce is trying to do. They haven't said it that way, but if you think about the way Force kind of started to tie things together, and they start to do things like embed chatter in it so that when Financial Force wants to be social, they just surface chatter, or they start to allow Box to plug in, because Box is now your file collaboration service, whatever. So that could happen, and I see it more and more. Now, the end result, though, is perhaps different, because the rest of the story is that then the vendors with the most leverage just buy out the services, and we're back to mega vendors. Because what's happened today? Cloud, if you're a cloud vendor and you're under $1 billion, you're going to get bought in the next 18 months, unless your service is so bad that nobody wants you. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And if you're a social vendor, that's, same thing. You're going to get bought. So it's all going to start to consolidate again around those big hubs. But I really think that, Salesforce could pull this off. I've always had issues with the fact that they aren't being as prescriptive around what's built on the platform. Because if they can never solve the whole system problem, they'll never solve the whole system problem. But maybe the granular service concept actually supersedes that, and then it doesn't matter, because then you can plug in across the platform and it wouldn't make any difference. And perhaps they buy up some of those. Or they do joint ventures like Financial Force. That's the third platform. That's the other presentation that I didn't bring. But that one is, actually that's my keynote at E2.0 next week too. It's third generation platform, or next generation platform.
I agree with you. We're working on a project together. I think sometimes when you talk about the technology, what I still see is the pushback from the human element. I see, I mean, we're working with this company. This company they're putting out research. I mean, they're doing qualitative, quantitative research on best practices. And you see all these, this whole bunch of BS and blah, blah, blah. And my response is, it might be BS, but they're doing research that no one else is doing. So, it might be wrong, but I'm betting on, so I still see the human element. I'll give you an example here. There's a company here, a VC, right across the street here, refuses to meet with me personally. Refuses. So, an email I sent to them was, FYI, I put Comcast on the lost business report, okay? It's a big company. The VC, they didn't care. They're sitting hiding in their little office here. Now, for me, I'm on, so, what we're gonna do with the human, we're still human beings, I mean.
No, we are, and frankly, that's the part of the talk always, that, that is the longest part when you're dealing with a company, how do we move from to? Because you're changing behavior and you change the culture of the company, which means that you've got to do this in a way that's, very planned and rolls out in a way that builds around your own success, or you'll never be successful. We see a lot of companies that roll out top-down enterprise social networks, and they build a network that's like a ghost town, because nobody comes. Because there's no point in it, because they don't know what it's in it for them, and they don't know why you wanted them to use it, and they don't know those things. But I see lots of companies that implement it in the right way. They start little, they grow it, they tell you what your role is, they show you how to use it, they teach you what's in it for you, and they're very successful. But it's changing that behavior a little bit at a time, and it's not easy.
How do you see companies doing this successfully? What are some of the,
It's back to the old change management plan. So they actually said, some old things still work great, but you have to do it in a new way. That is, it can't be that huge thing like we used to think of it. It actually has to be incremental. It's almost like throwing a stone in a pond. It has to be those expanding ripples, because behavior changes when people see that the behavior change is good for them, and they understand that it's not a threat for them. And so you've got to build on that in a very small way. And, there's some argument. One of my friends, Charlene Lee, wrote a book about leadership in this social environment. And she and I were talking about this the other day, that there's a chance that there's a whole segment of middle management that has to go before some businesses will actually be able to do this.
is it middle management, or is it the executives that have to go? 'Cause
Well,
they're supporting the,
there are some executives there's no question there too. But I more often see the greatest level of resistance in the middle management. Not from any fault of theirs, by the way. It's just all of a sudden, if you start to feel like your job, you've been a manager for your whole career, now I tell you I want you to be a coach.
leadership there. It's funny, I work with a lot of people in the military. It's different, with different cultures in Army versus Marine, Special Forces.
That makes sense.
Yeah, well.
Careful.
Well, no, but it's interesting to see, well, like, I think too, I don't see companies seeing the urgency if they're under the threat. I think there's almost like a denial that versus if you're in Ramadi Al-Anbar and somebody's trying to kill you, it's a different, you'll change because,
Well, so I will tell you that a lot of the companies that changed early on were B2C companies because they had to defend against the new customer, the social customer, whatever. But it works the same in B2B because, I don't know, and the B2B sales, I was always selling to a person, not to a B. So.
although you're starting to see research, the B2B salesperson is even more important.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
And now you're starting to see internal sales, inside sales being branded out, which is also another, okay, now have this brand within a brand. So it's interesting to see all the different changes.
Well, and that's, in the end, the same concepts work. I mean, Intel's using the customer community for their OEMs really successfully. There's an environmental research company that built out commercial realtors into a community they're using that, driving tons of business out of it. I mean, the same concepts work, but it's just a little harder to see the urgency at times yet, but it'll get there. Because again, people are in the end making the choice, and if I don't like doing business with you, I'm not going to do business with you.
Just about B2B. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Couple of things. One, you talked about your experience of buying a camera. I didn't hear you talk at all about what to do about the death of brand. You didn't say, ooh, what about the Nikon, what about the Sony, what about the Panasonic? You just went out, it wouldn't have mattered if the consensus was the XYZ brand. So I think that's really
Well, so to your point, I've been a Canon shooter since I worked professionally as a photographer in college. And I now own a Canon and two Fujis. And two Fujis came out of that same conversation. And that, because you're right, the brand starts to shift, and I don't, not that I'm not still loyal to Canon, I still love the Canon, it's a great brand, I still use it all the time, but I've gotten smarter about what's happening.
I mean, I think these are parts of the underlying internet stuff that started back in the late '90s. And the other thing is, I didn't hear you, it was in your innovation, it was implicit in your innovation, but the whole concept of co-creation.
Yeah.
And that co-creation is really, really powerful. And it's kind of like this undercurrent that's not even talked about and thought about.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting too, that in that survey, the number one thing was customers and partners feedback on the products or services. So we are starting to see it a lot in the partner side, and I said I have 4 analysts that do nothing but cover hardware, software, channels, and alliances, and in that side, like for example, SAP, we helped them build a partner community that's been very successful for them a couple of years ago. They put it out. It was really hard for them because in the process, you can imagine this, very traditional company, very traditional. And
I'm an ex-SAP.
well, so right? So it was, how hard was it for them to get past the idea that they have to put up a community that lets customers and partners interact and lets customers talk about partner solutions in an open environment. And if it's positive, it's positive, and if it's negative, it's negative, and you cannot remove it. And they did buy into it, and 100%, and they had great results. And of course, what always happens in communities, when a customer unjustly accuses a partner of something, the community wins. And once SAP learned that, they were great. But it's just hard to get past that mindset because you're thinking, I lose control of it. I mean, but that's not true at all. Partners are very important. Yeah, co-creation, co-innovation. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and thank you everyone for contributing to a great discussion. We do have, as always, some Force.com swag to give away. So, Ami, would you like to do the honors?
Michael, usually what we do is we have the speaker ask
Like
any
it- well,
questions
awesome.
about the